The late afternoon sun bathed the suburban streets in a rich, golden glow, stretching long shadows across the manicured lawns. 7-year-old twins, Sophie and Clara Evans, pedaled their bikes in looping circles around the quiet cul-de-sac, their matching yellow helmets glinting in the light. Giggles spilled from them, ringing through the tranquil neighborhood as they raced each other, their identical ponytails swinging with every push of the pedals. "You'll never catch me," Clara shouted, her ponytail bouncing wildly as she sped up. Her green bike shimmered under the sunlight, its handlebar tassels fluttering like colorful banners caught in the breeze. Sophie, astride her matching red bike, leaned forward with fierce determination. "Oh, just you wait," she called back, grinning as she pumped her legs harder. The wind whipped past her ears, her focus narrowing as she closed the gap between them. From the front porch, their mother, Emily Evans, watched with a soft smile, her heart swelling with a quiet, tender pride. She cradled a mug of lavender tea in her hands, settled into her favorite rocking chair. The sight of her daughters playing so carefree smoothed the edges of her weariness after a grueling week at the office. These moments, simple, pure, and joyful, were the ones that made every late night and early morning worth it. "Careful, girls," she called out as Sophie took a corner a little too sharply, her voice warm with affection rather than real concern. She cherished these fleeting snapshots of their childhood, wishing she could bottle them up forever. The twins wove playful patterns across the street, their tires humming against the pavement. Every so often, they'd hit a small bump, jolting them in their seats and drawing fresh bursts of laughter. The neighborhood was still, save for their cheerful noise and the faint trill of birds perched in the towering oak trees lining the road. At the corner, Mrs. Harriet Grayson, their elderly neighbor with her silver hair swept into a tidy bun, appeared. She shuffled along the sidewalk in her practical brown shoes, a small grocery bag dangling from her arm, her usual haul from the corner store. "Hi, Mrs. Grayson." Sophie and Clara chimed in unison, waving eagerly as they zipped by, their voices bright and bubbly. Mrs. Grayson glanced up, offering a weak wave in return, but her lined face lacked its usual kindness. Her eyes flickered nervously, scanning the street, and she hugged her bag tighter, her knuckles paling against the plastic. The twins, lost in their game, didn't notice her unease, too wrapped up in their imaginary race as they looped the cul-de-sac. "Mrs. Grayson hurried toward her house 3 doors down, her steps quicker than normal. "Girls, 10 more minutes," Emily called from a porch. The sun dipped lower, painting the sky in streaks of orange and pink, the clouds fluffing into pastel hues. "Okay, Mom," Sophie yelled back while Clara squeezed in one final lap, arms raised triumphantly as if crossing a finish line. The evening settled into a gentle rhythm. Dinner, chatter, the usual flow of family life. After their meal, the twins trudged upstairs, their earlier energy fading into a sleepy calm. Standing side by side at the bathroom sink, they brushed their teeth with matching ladybug toothbrushes, their starry pajamas glowing faintly under the light. "I almost beat you in that last race," Sophie mumbled through a foamy mouth, catching Clara's eye in the mirror. Clara giggled, a dribble of toothpaste escaping down her chin. "No way," she retorted, wiping it off with her sleeve, leaving a faint smear. As they rinsed, their mother's voice drifted up from downstairs, sharper than her usual evening chats with their Aunt Rachel. The edge in her tone made them freeze. "Are you sure?" they heard Emily say, her voice quivering. "That doesn't make any sense." The worry was unmistakable, even from a floor away. The twins exchanged puzzled glances, toothbrushes hovering in their hands. Sophie reached over and twisted off the faucet, the sudden quiet amplifying their mother's words. "Yes, I understand," Emily went on, her voice fading as she paced the kitchen. "But they were just, no, I see. Yes, I'll be there first thing." Her footsteps tapped restlessly across the tile below. The girls couldn't catch the rest, but the strain in her voice, The kind she used when Sophie had sprained her ankle last summer or when Clara had spiked a fever, twisted their stomachs. "What's wrong with Mom?" Clara whispered, her playful spark dimming as she gripped Sophie's hand. Sophie shrugged, though a small knot tightened at her chest. "Maybe she's just tired from work," she offered, trying to sound sure. They finished getting ready in a rare hush, ears straining for more. When the phone clicked into its cradle, Emily's long, shaky exhale seemed to ripple through the silent house. The next morning, a thunderous pounding at the front door shattered the stillness. It was 6:40. Sophie stirred, tugging her blue quilt closer, her heart thudding as she tried to place the sound. Across the room, Clara bolted upright, rubbing her eyes, her dark hair a tangled mess from restless sleep. "What's that?" she whispered, clutching her stuffed bear tighter, her voice trembling. Before Sophie could answer, their mother's footsteps raced down the hall, bare feet slapping carpet, followed by the creak of the front door swinging open. Voices erupted into their quiet home, sharp and jarring, bouncing off the walls like storm clouds rolling in. Mrs. Evans stepped aside. A deep voice barked, firm and unyielding. Heavy boots thundered up the stairs, each step rattling the twins' nerves. They locked eyes, fear mirroring between them, as their bedroom door flew open with a crash. Two police officers loomed in the doorway, their dark uniforms stark against the soft morning light filtering through the ladybug curtains. Their faces were hard, unreadable. "These are them," one officer said to the other, his tone flat and cold. They stormed into the room, boots scuffing the cream carpet. "What's happening?" Sophie yelped as rough hands yanked her from bed, cold handcuffs snapping around her wrists, the metal biting her skin. Beside her, Clara sobbed, her bear tumbling to the floor as she was restrained. "Mommy," she wailed, tears streaking her face. Emily appeared in the doorway, still in her polka-dot nightgown, her face drained of color. "Stop this. They're just kids," she begged, her voice cracking as she trailed the officers dragging the twins downstairs. The nightmare was only beginning. From here, the story could unfold over days or weeks, exploring the bewildering arrest of two innocent 7-year-olds, the unraveling mystery tied to Mrs. Grayson's odd behavior, and Emily's desperate fight to protect her daughters. Below is a continuation to build toward the word count goal, adding depth to the characters, setting, and tension. The living room, usually a haven of cozy evenings and board games, felt alien under the harsh glare of the officers' flashlights. Sophie and Clara huddled together on the couch, wrists still bound, their wide eyes darting between the towering figures. Emily stood in front of them, arms crossed, her voice rising. "This is insane. They're 7 years old. What could they possibly have done?" The lead officer, a broad-shouldered man with a buzz cut and a badge reading Sergeant Carter, didn't flinch. "Ma'am, we have orders." "Step back." His partner, a younger woman with sharp features, scribbled something on a clipboard, her expression detached. "Orders for what?" Emily snapped, her fear boiling into anger. "You can't just barge in here and handcuff my daughters without explaining why." Her hands trembled, but her stance was firm, a mother lion guarding her cubs. Sergeant Carter exhaled through his nose, impatience flickering in his eyes. "We're acting on a warrant. That's all you need to know for now. They're coming with us." He gestured to the girls, and the younger officer moved toward them. "No." Emily lunged forward, blocking their path. "Show me the warrant. I'm not letting you take them anywhere until I see it." Her voice shook, but her resolve held. Carter hesitated, then pulled a folded paper from his jacket. He thrust it toward her, and Emily snatched it, her eyes scanning the text. Her breath hitched. "This says suspicion of theft and vandalism? That's impossible. They've been home all week, playing in the yard, riding their bikes. They haven't even left the neighborhood." "Evidence says otherwise," the female officer cut in, her tone clipped. "We've got witness statements and footage. Now, move aside, or we'll add obstruction to this." "Witness statements? From who?" Emily's mind raced. The cul-de-sac was small, only a handful of neighbors. The Hendersons across the street were on vacation. The Parkers kept to themselves, and Mrs. Grayson, her thoughts snagged on the old woman's odd behavior yesterday. The nervous glances, the hurried steps. Could she have said something? Before she could press further, Clara's small voice broke through. "Mummy, I'm scared." Her cheeks were wet, her ponytail limp. Sophie, usually the bolder twin, pressed closer to her sister, her cuffed hands trembling. Emily knelt beside them, brushing their hair back. "It's okay, sweethearts. I'm right here. We'll figure this out." Her throat tightened as she stood, facing Carter again. "They're not going anywhere without me. I'm their mother. I'm coming with them." Carter's jaw tightened, but he nodded curtly. "Fine. Get dressed. We're leaving in 5. The police station was a blur of fluorescent lights and clipped voices. Emily sat in a sterile waiting room, clutching a paper cup of stale coffee, while Sophie and Clara were taken somewhere for processing. The word churned in her gut. Processing. Like they were criminals, not kids who'd been giggling over toothpaste hours ago. She replayed the warrant in her mind. Dates, times, vague accusations about stolen goods and damaged property near the corner store. It didn't add up. The girls hadn't been near the store in weeks. Not since they'd gone with her to grab milk and ended up with popsicles dripping down their chins. Someone was lying, and she needed to know who. Hours crawled by before a detective finally approached. Detective Laura Monroe, a wiry woman with short auburn hair and tired eyes. "Mrs. Evans," she began, sitting across from her. "I'll be straight with you. We've got a witness claiming your daughters were involved in a break-in yesterday afternoon. Security footage backs it up. 2 kids matching their description. Yellow helmets and all." Emily's stomach dropped. "Yesterday afternoon? They were riding their bikes in front of our house. I was watching them the whole time." Monroe raised an eyebrow. "You're sure? No gaps where they might have slipped off?" "Positive," Emily shot back. "I never took my eyes off them. Whoever's on that footage, it's not my girls." Monroe leaned back, tapping her pen against her notepad. "The witness is pretty insistent. Says she saw them near the store, messing with the back door. We're talking to her now, but the footage, it's compelling." "Who's the witness?" Emily demanded, her voice sharp. Monroe paused, then sighed. "Harriet Grayson. Lies a few houses down from you." Emily froze. "Mrs. Grayson." The nervous glances. The clutch bag. It clicked into place. But why would she lie? The old woman had always been kind, baking cookies for the girls at Christmas, chatting about her garden. What had changed?